out here in the wild, where the heart beats free. We're crafting our dreams, just my family and me. From sunrise to sundown, we're making our way, building our legacy, day by day. Welcome to the Wildheart Podcast, where passion meets purpose. Home state and living dreams that serve us.
So that's our intro. Welcome to the Wildheart Podcast. I don't think I've sold you on the intro yet, have I?
No.
Well, what if I put like a graphic in the front of at the front of the video podcast? Audio people won't know the difference other than my poor audio editing skills. No. I'm Tony. This is
Aaron.
Speak up.
I'm the wife. No, I'm Aaron.
And yeah, we're doing a podcast today about
nothing.
Permaculture. We're doing a primer on permaculture. Some green foundations. We're unpacking a little bit of the principles, zones, and just some of the history of permaculture.
I know nothing.
You know nothing? Do you know roughly what the idea is about? What?
You grow plants together and they thrive together.
Maybe you're in a way you're kind of integrating what happens naturally in nature, but you're doing it with purpose. But before we get into that, what have you been doing for the last 2 weeks?
Suffering in the heat. No.
There's a lot of heat, and you're a little red.
Very toasted. Oh, you can't see. There you go.
Yeah.
Anyone on visual can see my horrendous sunburn.
Oh my.
Oh my, what? My horrendous sunburn? Yes, yeah. It's awful. This is day 3 of getting sunburned in the same spot.
Repeatedly.
Yes. It's
Everybody
progressively getting worse.
Everybody knows that's really good for you.
It's totally fine. I swear I probably won't have any issues later on in life.
Well, it's one of those things where it'll be fine.
Well, it's either that or I just don't go out with my children, and that's unfortunate.
That's not an option.
No. Other than that, not planting.
We got some roses.
Tending plants.
We got some roses,
yes.
Wild roses.
Yesterday.
From the wild.
We did some roses.
we harnessed. We harnessed some wild.
We collected some wild roses.
Yeah, they were in the wild, so
we collected them.
They were growing in a boulevard that was overgrown.
And probably going to get chopped down at some point, maybe.
So that was a new thing. I think I like the idea of doing the one new thing a week.
You do, so...
What's the goal?
I saw this thing on, I think, Instagram, and it was like, you do one new thing a week, and then you do one bigger new thing a month, and you do one really cool new thing in a year. So, that big thing that takes the year is, you learn a new skill or whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
And the concept behind it is that time is easier to not identify, but time seems to slow down when we experience new, novel experiences. So instead of it being monotonous, you go to work, you come home, you sit on the couch and you watch TV and you rinse and repeat each day, and then your weekends you're like, we're doing nothing. It's
Ikagi, I believe is a Japanese term. That
is not at all what I was talking about, but sure.
No?
No.
That's how I took it as. It's kind of...
And it's ikigagi. Ikigai.
Ikigai.
I don't know. Ikagi. I'm not Japanese. We are blowing out our mic real bad today.
We'll lower the volume just a little bit. Just in case.
Don't blow people's ears off. But yeah, so basically, the more novel experiences you can have in your life or in your experience, in your time frame, pick whatever time frame, the slower time will seem to go for you. That's why when we're children and we're like young adults, time seems to go slower than it is when we reach adulthood.
You're playing with time then.
Yes. You are manipulating time.
To your will.
Bending it.
Yeah, I've mostly just been really busy with work as usual. I got the garage a little bit more under control.
Too much.
I got the mirror on the wall in the bathroom, which I'm happy with.
Mirror on the wall.
That was, I took the wood away, so now it is freestanding.
I was going to say,
for those
it's
who
been
don't
like
know,
a couple of weeks, so it should be.
No, it's not a couple. Well, I guess it is a couple.
It has been a couple of weeks, because
So-
you did it when I was at work.
And so, essentially, just to describe what I've been doing, I put some 3/4 spruce wood plywood on the wall with the intention of putting some LED stripping around it, and then I got a custom cut mirror and I was going to glue it on. The glue, it turns out, that's usually designed for sticking mirrors to walls and things. They stopped producing it. It was like I forget the actual brand, but LePage, I want to say, was making specifically for glue, because you have to watch out for some of the silicones and adhesives that you're supposed to use for this sort of thing. Some of them take off like the silver backing of the mirror, so it's just, anyway, long story short, I found one. It seems to stick. At least it has since I took off the support
Just yesterday or today?
today. So
Okay, well, if you hear
less than 24
a
hours.
massive crash later tonight, we know what it is.
Yeah, I kind of give it a little push test, see if it was like moving or anything, and seems to be okay. So it seems to be pretty solid. Anyway, shall we move on to permaculture?
Yes.
I
recognize that name.
What name?
Rudolf Steiner.
Rudolf
Wasn't
Stein?
he something about the Waldorf dude?
I don't know.
Anyways, go on. Tell us about the permaculture.
Let's start with the history, I guess.
Why would they put that at that point?
Yeah, I don't know. So the origins of permaculture is a gentleman named Bill Mollison.
And David Holmgren.
They're the founders. They're kind of they started discussing it back in the day in a publication called Permaculture 1.
Very informative.
They bear with me here.
Scroll down.
So
Oh, there it is.
the I guess
You should just scroll down. It was
All right.
back in 1978. That's
yeah.
impressive.
So it has been a while
So-
back in the day.
Bill Molson had, he was the one who did the publication of the permaculture one, and then David Holmgren, furthered that by the looks of it. There's a permaculture research institute. That's cool.
So
He was Australian, Bill Molson.
yeah, I feel like permaculture kind of originates in Australia pretty heavily.
I can't imagine why. It's not like it's the greatest country.
Savannas are arguably one of the best zones to be growing things in.
Lots of sun, I guess.
And just like you got lots of grazing animals, you have a good amount of water and tree mixture. But anyway, back to the history. Bill Mollison, Australian researcher, author, biologist, who co-developed the concept. His experience was working in natural systems, and his observations of traditional agriculture led him to seek more sustainable ways of living in harmony with the land.
Cool. Okay.
You want to take the next piece?
In 1974, Mollison, along with his student David Holmgren, developed the foundational principles. I'm having a difficulty time speaking today. Principles of permaculture, which emphasize sustainable and self-sufficient agricultural ecosystems. So my understanding of that is get some plants that all work together and grow well together, and it will self-sustain. You won't need to do too much to get it working together.
And then so he invented something. He once he kind of figured out a way to essentially live more sustainably with the land. He figured he should probably teach other people, so he invented the permaculture design course. Mollison, also known as the PDC. It's essentially a comprehensive course. It educates thousands of people worldwide. It kind of gives you the certification to design in permaculture.
Hold on, sorry, go back to that. Interesting. Please open that tab. I'm curious. Anyways.
David Holmgren.
He is the co-originator, this is a good term, of permaculture. Holmgren's collaboration with Mollison was crucial in shaping the initial concepts. His focus was on the integration of ecological design and sustainability in agricultural practices, which has been very influential.
Yeah, he has a few books on permaculture, specifically Permaculture Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability.
And Retro Suburbia, the Downshifter's Guide to a Resilient Future. That sounds pretty epic.
Yes. I've been following Jeff Lawton for quite a while. He is out in Jordan right now, from my understanding.
Okay. He studied under Bill Mollison.
And
has worked on projects in over 30 countries.
Yeah, he's basically made the desert into an oasis, is kind of his latest project, from my understanding.
Sounds like a fantastic time.
It's just like doing the things that people said couldn't be done, sort of thing. He likes to transform deserts into productive landscapes, establishing food forests, and creating sustainable building.
Creating sustainable community models.
Yeah. Then, excuse me. Let's go into.
What is the overview?
So.
I think the overview of it is just creating sustainable and self-sufficient agricultural ecosystems that flow well with the natural nature, the natural environment around it.
So we have, if you think of how a forest grows, you have different layers of those forests, and so you have the base layer. Which is kind of like the ground is the most important thing. You have
ground and dirt is important in growing things? I've been doing it wrong my entire life.
Yeah, obviously it goes kind of height wise from there. The grasses, then the shrubs, and the vines, and the trees. In a more definitive permaculture would be a more definition of what permaculture is.
English is hard today.
Yes, clearly. Describing permaculture, it's a design system that mimics the natural ecosystems to create a sustainable and self-sufficient living and agriculture system.
It's literally what I said, just fancified.
Yeah. So.
The philosophical roots touch on how permaculture is grounded in principles of ecology, systems thinking, and observation of nature. Mm-hmm. So it works with nature rather than working against it to achieve a more sustainable way of living. Very lovely. That's very on par with what we do.
Yeah.
What we are aiming for.
There's this term that often comes up when discussing permaculture is... the problem is the solution.
Yeah, tell me about the ants.
We haven't figured out how the ants are the solution to their
war
problem.
with ants in our yard.
It means that the ground is very good for ants. Haven't figured out how to make that the solution yet.
I'm about to burn the house. Well, not the house. I'm about to, like, I don't know, dig up the entire yard to get rid of them.
Ants.
It is so bad. There's
If anybody has good ant...
massive anthill. Like, it's big. Where's my camera? There we go. Whoop, whoop. Oh, my goodness. There we go. It's like a mirror.
If enough of what the size of the anthill.
It's big.
It's a big anthill. If anybody has any tips on ants and how to get rid of them out of your garden or integrate, make them the solution to the problem, let us know. Because they're driving somebody crazy.
They're in my flowers, and I don't like it.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that... Are they doing anything to the flowers?
They might be killing them.
Might be. Are you sure?
The back flower is dying.
Because of the ants.
Yes, blame it on the ants. They could also very well be in our one of our wicking beds, by the way. I've seen a lot of ants in that area.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So let's discuss permaculture zones. What is a permaculture zone? Permaculture zones are organized spaces by the frequency of human use and the nature of the activities in each area, starting from the home and moving outward towards the less managed areas. So zone 0 would be the home. This is essentially where we live.
Living space.
This is where we have, we optimize energy for efficiency and waste reduction. We might want to do things like rainwater collection systems, solar, composting in the home, windowsill plants and things like that, herbs and storage of all our herbs. Zone 1
is immediate reach. So these would be areas that include elements that require frequent attention, such as the kitchen gardens, where herbs, salads, different vegetables, plants for everyday use and things like that would be located. So most of your food-growing plants, and like we said, the herbs and stuff.
And then zone 2, as you kind of wander out into the garden or yard or homestead, you have less frequented areas. So if you don't have
less frequent care.
Yeah, so you don't have things like large vegetable plots, small fruit trees, perennials that don't require regular maintenance are located there. Also suitable for small animal shelters. So chicken
bunnies.
Coops, bunny coops? Is it a coop for bunnies?
I don't think so.
Bunny
warren, burrows.
But you don't build a burrow. They make a burrow. Anyway.
Bunny pen.
That's like Money Penny from James Bond. Anyway.
Sure.
Zone 3 to 5, as you go out, it's decreasing the human interaction. Essentially, you're going outwards. You don't want to be putting something that's very high maintenance out in a zone 3 to 5 because you're going to have to. It's most likely just going to get. It's going to die because you're not going to maintain it because you're not actively traveling out that far generally. Mm-hmm. We're talking about things that are like a staple crop for agriculture or larger livestock, or forested areas, natural ecosystems.
That support biodiversity and provide resources like timber and wild food.
Mm-hmm. So in urban settings, it's obviously we're still urban, I'll say. There's a lot of people starting to integrate things. So we have the wicking water beds, for example. Mm-hmm. That just helps us. It's our garden is where would you say our garden is? It's more of a 1 or a zone 2?
I would say most of my herbs are within immediate reach. It does not take me far to walk to get those things.
But you're not constantly going there.
Yeah.
I guess you are. Because it's... But anyway, so...
I walk past them daily.
That's fair.
But the like the tomatoes, the chives, the carrots, those types of things, they are further. So I would say those would be in the zone 2. Those are the major wicking beds.
Yeah, because we have the ones around the deck, and then
Yeah.
we have the wicking water bed. Oh, all of our gardens are technically wicking.
All except for the chamomile.
Okay.
Chamomile's the only one that I don't. And I would probably get them in a wicking one as well, just
Sure.
because it's nice. Because they have been dry. They are so dry right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously there's ways you could integrate, like with rain barrels, vertical gardens, balconies, and just shared community spaces for gardens. So, I mean, it's really depending on what you want to do, how far you really want to get with your permaculture.
I would say with the urban, it's maximizing your space as well, right? Like, knowing that you have, maybe you want some flowers, but you want to have, some vegetable or herbs, right? Like, you got to figure out what plants do well together, what give what to the soils, what takes what from the soils, so that you can kind of condense them.
And like we live in central Canada, so it's one of those things where we are faced with a lot colder climates.
Hot in the summer, cold in the winter.
And we have a shorter growing season because of that, right?
Yes.
We want to have cold hardy plant varieties. What were the perennials that came back this year?
Chamomile.
And
plantain.
And the chives.
Oh yeah, and the chives. That's not my domain. That's yours. And my sweetgrass.
And sweetgrass. Sweetgrass seems to be hardy.
The sweetgrass is kind of native to our area, so.
Yeah, I mean, we could potentially employ greenhouses in the future. I actually just discovered a new way to build greenhouses with essentially just like EMT tubing, so like metallic tubing, and bending it into the arch. But then, you know how most greenhouses have the plastic on it? And most people make the mistake of like puncturing the plastic to attach it to things.
Smart.
Well, I mean, how do you attach it to the poles, right?
Magic.
No, there's actually these like special
wrap.
clips that essentially, like, opposed to puncturing, they essentially kind of grab the plastic and attach it to the poles. And yeah, anyway, I was one of the guys at work was telling me about it, and yeah, I'm eager to give it a try someday.
One day when we have more space.
Yes, we will. But yeah, that's kind of the start of what permaculture is.
Yeah. I was going to say there was one other thing that I guess that was it. That we were just talking about, that was very brief on doing it in the prairies.
Yeah. What are the core principles of permaculture?
Observation and interaction. Understanding natural systems and working with them rather than against them. Energy cycling.
Like the ants. We'll get to that answer someday.
I will burn them all down. I have no problem with ants. I just don't want them in my yard or on my... I don't want a massive nest of ants in my flowers or in my yard. Because I literally stepped on that hole today, and you should have seen the amount of coming out of it.
Well, if somebody stepped on your hole, I bet you'd be pretty mad too. House.
If someone stepped on my house and they were the size that I was in comparison to the ants, I would have lots of more questions and probably have more things to say than just being mad.
Energy cycling is also another core principle.
Efficient use and reuse the energy within the system.
Yeah, so like obviously flowers and the plants essentially take up their energy. They are part of the energy cycle. They, in a sense, they are like
they take the sun's energy and then produce food and
they give us energy if we consume them, or they give the animals energy.
Then we eat the animals.
And they give us energy, right?
Tasty animals.
Um,
We're all just eating sun energy is basically the gist of it.
we are all made of stardust. Anyway, diversity and resilience is another one. So promoting biodiversity to create resilient ecosystems is important. So opposed to the typical like monocrop agriculture model where they basically just dump chemicals on the fields and destroy the soil quality, opposed to build it with
Varieties of plants.
well, there's different ways to build the soil. So one way is things like composting. Another way is using your ruminants, which are cows, sheep, goats, to basically mow your grass and deposit their eatings. Actually, I found out a fun fact about how a lot of people say cow farts are a big problem for the greenhouse gases so far. The methane is what they say, but the statistic there, the 6% of all world emissions on the methane side, that's throughout their whole life cycle. And I had to look it up because basically 90% of their life is spent normally eating, grass, ruminating, being a ruminant.
Ruminating on things.
And then the tail end of their life, their last, week or two of life, is spent in a place essentially where they're fed food that they aren't designed to eat, aka corn and grains, to fatten them up, and it fattens them up well, to quote unquote finish them before they go to cow university or what have you. And
before they graduate.
Before they graduate, yes. But
it's a sad.
Like the methane aspect of things is essentially, they're eating grains which they're not designed to, so they're farting and pooping, and so they're essentially like, they wouldn't, if you put them in a field with just corn and grain, they wouldn't eat it naturally. So they're essentially being force fed something they wouldn't necessarily want to eat, and then the side effect is a little bit more, farting and pooping. But also there's like essentially I forget what they call them, but essentially if you've ever looked at one of these places, they don't really have the best sanitation, and there's just fields of refuse that and so this last tail end, this last week or two of their life is kind of responsible for most of that methane, and it's because they're kind of being forced into a lot of unnaturalities. Unnaturalities? Is that a thing?
Unnatural things.
Yeah, they're trying to be finished.
Wonderful.
But anyway, that's the most unnatural part of their life is responsible for most of the emissions, and if we just let it kind of, if the process was more natural, obviously it would be more work for people, but it would be less of an issue because of that. So anyway, that would be more observation, interaction. But the last core principle is
integration. Designing integrated systems where the elements support each other.
So an example of that is growing food like plantain, for example.
I don't know if I'd call plantain food.
For rabbits.
Sure.
Rabbits supposedly love plantain. And then basically as we are well aware, plantain is borderline a weed. It propagates itself quite well.
It is very well in designing for the propagation.
And I imagine if we had a bunch of plantain, we could feed it to rabbits. They love to eat it, and then potentially you could eat the rabbits.
Yes.
So that's a system that kind of designs, and in turn the rabbits will poop it out and fertilize the plantain and build the soil and
life cycle.
Cycle
of life.
Yeah. What things haven't we
Are
covered?
you gonna ask her questions? Any questions?
Any questions? Do we have any viewers? Not that I see. But I didn't put the right title in this one.
I was gonna say we
I'll
are
edit
not
that after.
exploring the Waldorf schools yet. Again.
We'll edit that and fix it later. But yeah, that's the summation of. It's a little primer on what permaculture is. It's taking care of the earth, taking care of people, and just being more equitable, ethical when it comes to your food, farm, the earth, and I'm looking forward to trying it on a larger scale in our next place.
I think the biggest thing to take from permaculture is you're working with nature, not against it. A lot of our farming techniques that we have right now is very much I am imposing whatever I want to do onto the land, and the land is then forced essentially to like produce whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're trying to grow avocados in a very like deserty area without any other like whatever other than just here's my crop of avocados.
And
right?
it gets into like obviously this is just the primer. I mean, when you start getting into the actual designing of permaculture, you start learning about different ways you could conserve water, different ways you could make your compost work for you. Even just getting different ways of composting. I feel like I'm putting the accent on the wrong syllable, but
composting.
Composting is what I say. Anyway,
composting.
Composting. There, we've covered all of them. One of them's right. So, yeah,
it's
obviously
like
when you get
aluminium.
into the PDC, is it a roof or is it a rough?
Is it a bout or a boot?
We're Canadian. I say about.
Yeah, I don't know who says a boot. Anyways, we don't need to go down this conversation topic.
What do you say?
Get out
And
of here.
so the last we'll sign off with that. Have you ever heard of permaculture? Is this something new to you? You want to know more? I know we're gonna know more eventually.
I know we're gonna know more.
This is just an excuse for us to dive a little bit deeper into it, because obviously none of us have taken a PDC yet.
None of us. There's only two.
None of us in this house. But yeah, obviously we just wanted to help deepen our understanding with it and just kind of start going down the path. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Maybe.
We do what do you mean maybe?
I don't know.
She doesn't want to do it anymore, I
Well,
guess.
it's my birthday tomorrow. I don't want to do that.
I know. But on that note, we're signing off.
Bye.
Take care.